All right, this video is for a demonstration to get started on the monochromatic icon painting. And I know most of you in class already had the demonstration in school, but I'm going to just go through and walk you through the steps, especially for our students who began this project while they were distant learning. So step one, I'm just gonna start sharing my screen here so you can see the demonstration. And if you look, step one was to take your photograph that you had sent me, or your photo that you printed of your icon, and we took a transparent piece of paper, just a plastic piece of paper, lined it up over, and then we took a Sharpie marker, traced over all of the lines and separation of shadows and highlights. And then when you get all done tracing with that ultra fine Sharpie and you take it away from the portrait, place it on a paper, you'll see what you're left with is just the simple outlines of your portrait. From there, I used an overhead projector to project it onto the whiteboard and onto your large piece of paper, and then you have your piece to paint. Now, when you go in and start painting, the first step is to make sure you have a palette, and then you've got your black and white paint. So here's my black and white paint. And then my color, and my color is kind of a green, a blue-green, almost a teal color. So these are what you're going to need. You have your color, your white, and your black. Your white is going to lighten your local color. Your black is going to darken your local color. Therefore, black will be used for all of the darker values or the shades, and then white will be used to create all of those lighter values. Now, what you're going to need when you start painting, you're going to need to look at your portrait and decide where you see most of the dark or the darkest darks. So for me, the darkest darks besides the background, we're not talking about the background right now. You can come back to that later. The darkest darks are some of the very dark shadows in his hair. And then there's also quite a few shadows down in the chin area. And then, of course, he's got some darks in his eyes, which is the colored part. And then his shirt, or his overshirt, is definitely dark shades or values. So if you look, I have my painting back here, the one that I've started. If you look at this painting, I'll bring it up closer for you. You can see the parts that I started with for this painting were his hair, the dark parts of his hair, his shirt, this part of his chin, and then I did the irises, and then the nostrils. So that is the part that you are actually going to start with, is just those darkest darks. Now, when you're doing your painting, or when you're starting, when you're starting, you actually can mix your darkest darks with a black and the color. A lot of students use just black, but it's going to benefit you if you actually mix some of the color with. So for me, I'm going to take a little bit of that color, my local color. So for some of you, it might be blue, some of you, it might be red. And then I'm going to take some black, and I'm going to mix that up. And if you look, it's not completely black. It's like a little shade of that blue color in it. And then, like I said, from there, you go into your painting and you start painting those darkest values, which for me, it's the hair. So you just go in and you start painting those darkest values. The hair, it's the shirt, and those dark parts of the hair, the eyes, and then of course the nose. Now, when you're painting today, or when you're painting this first step, make sure you use the correct size brush. Some parts you're going to need a bigger brush, and other parts you're going to need a smaller brush, depending on your details. And then after you go in to get the darkest darks, and again, if you look at my example, after you go in and get those darkest darks, the darks that I got here, you can see I went in and I actually did a tint in his face. What that means is I took the white and I took the local color and I made a tint, because his face, you look at the picture, his face is not a shade, it's actually a highlight or a tint, lighter. So again, start with those darkest darks, mixing black with your color, and then you can go in and just pull out other values to continue. The hair, we do realize that the hair is a little bit unique, because with the hair we have a lot of different textures and different values. What I did is I went in with a kind of middle value first, and then I did the darkest darks over the top of it. And now you can see I made a tint of my color, and now I'm doing that over the top. So I am about, I would say I'm about 50% done. I have a lot of touch up to do and fixing to do, and probably some extra layers, but you get the idea, I think, of that. All right, let me know if you have any questions.